and gentlemen, welcome back to another video. This one's going to be on the Craftware slicer program, the 1.14, which is the most current version at the moment. This is going to be the part 2, which will be a walkthrough of the expert mode, where you can manually go in there and fine-tune most of the stuff that you want to do. But before we get started, there's two things I just want to say. One, if you're a beginner to 3D printing or to the slicing program or just anything 3D in general, there'll be a link below with most videos that I think might be helpful to newcomers. The second thing is, guys, I hit 100 subscribers, which is pretty good for somebody that's only been doing it roughly a week and 5 days. So that's telling me that I'm doing something right and that you guys are liking the videos that I'm putting out. So thank you for that. Well, that's enough of that. Let's get started. Start with Craftware here. Craftware. Alright. So I already have a model loaded in here. In the previous video we went over these tabs here, and we went over the support tab as well, and we went over the slicing tab here as well. So if you click on slice here, normally you would have been greeted with this screen here. So this would be the preset that's already in there. You just pick medium, high, or ultra, what kind of material you're using, PLA or ABS. It's automatically going to generate the supports for you and a raft as well. So normally you would just hit slice and then it would take you to a different screen and you would save it as a G code and that would be it. But in this video we're going to go over to switch to expert mode. What this is going to do is give you a whole lot of settings that you can mess with, because this is just the basic. You got advanced and two other tabs that we're going to go over. We're not going to go over G code because I don't want to mess with anything in there, but the basics. Alright, extruder, just like the most sizes that's out there right now, it's at a 0.4, so we're just going to leave that in there. One cool thing I do like about this program, though, in the advanced or expert mode, is when you actually click on some of the tabs, it actually shows you what that they're going to be talking about. Okay. The next thing we're going to talk about is layer height, and of course, if you notice, this is what it's talking about. So right now it's at 0.3. Let's say if I went ahead and changed that to a 1, you'll notice the layers come closer together. So that's what layer height is. It's the distance between one layer to the other. So the smaller you go, the thinner it's going to get. So if I get to 5, you'll notice it gets bigger. So normally, depending on what kind of print I'm doing, I usually leave it at 2. Some people can leave it a little higher or lower, depends on what you want to do with it. Alright, the next one is drawl speed. This is the actual speed that your nozzle is moving at when it's printing the actual STL file or the mesh file, whatever you want to call it. So this is the speed of the nozzle itself in the process of printing the STL file. Now there's two types of speed, guys. There's a draw speed, which is the actual item that you're printing. So when it's printing that item, this is the speed for that. There's also another speed that we'll go over later in one of these features, is the distance when it's traveling from, how do I put it? Let's say if you have 2 cubes on your bed, as it fills in one cube and is traveling to the other, that distance between the 2 items, you can set that to be different. You can set it at a higher pace because this way you won't get any stringing and things like that. Moving along, filament, mine is already set at 1.75. That is the type of filament I use. My printer does ABS and PLA at 1.75. This is the amount of flow. There's no preview on here. That's actually coming out of your extruder or your nozzle. So you want to leave that at 100, because if you slow this down, I know a lot of people have been having problems with it because they're asking me, hey, nothing's coming out of my nozzle, it's coming out pretty slow, is it clogged, or things like that. It could be, but this could be one of the main reasons here as well. Okay. These I'll just go over briefly, but the loop count is the same thing as the thickness. So if you notice, when I change it to a 3, it changes it here as well. But look what it does. Okay, right now you have 2. If I go up one more, it's going to add an extra layer of thickness there. So let's say if you're printing something and you don't want to do infill, you probably want to turn this up, because what it's going to do is, if you just go one layer, or technically one loop, it's going to be super thin. If you go 2, it's just going to add an extra one in there, 3, so on, so forth. Offset, you don't really want to mess with this. Just leave it the way it is. But if you want to know what this is just the offset, meaning the, I believe, the distance between these two here. So we don't want to make that high. We want to leave it a little lower. So it's the distance from here to here, which is going to be the offset, which we don't want to mess with. Parameter width. If you notice, if I go from 100 to 10, it's the initial layer, the first one that comes around. This is a very important one, so you want to leave that at 100. So parameter, I mean, just it describes itself. Parameter is the area around something. So you want to leave that a thick layer, because that's going to get your nozzle going. It's going to flow the filament out, and it's going to give you better adhesion between the layers, and not to mention the bed itself. Okay, parameter speed. So this is what I was talking about. This is, I believe, the speed that it's going to print at. So if you turn this up past 60, it's really not a good idea to do that. Even my draw speed up here, I usually leave it at 40 or 50. 60 if I'm doing something that's not very important. Inner loop width, that's basically going to be this part here. So if you notice, if I take that down to 50, see how it makes it smaller right there? These are things that you're not really ever going to mess with. You usually want to leave them at 100, but I'm just going over to show you guys. We're not going to mess with this one. If you want, it's the infill between the overlaps, basically. I just like to leave it the way it is at 0, and this should be fine. Moving along up here, top and bottom shell. This is very important in my opinion. Basically, do you want to go with parallel lines? Oh, it does not have a preview, so let's just stick with that for now. Okay, so the top and bottom layer. So we're going to do the top, which is right here. If you notice, when we bring this down, basically what it is the thickness of the layer, and it actually yeah, right here, right below it, I didn't even read that. It's the thickness. It's how many layers you're going to put at the bottom and on your print, or the item you're printing, and how many layers you're going to put on top. So the more layers you put, the stronger it's going to become. I usually like to just leave it at a 2. If you want to make it stronger, you can go to 3. If you notice, if I do 3, it adds 3. If you want to do 4, you can add up to 4. Density and speed. If you notice here, it's at 100 right now. Go and change it to 10. So this is what it is right there. And then if I go back to 100, so basically what that's telling you is, if you do the density on it, it's basically going to be how strong of the supports are going to be in the middle, or the layers. So if you notice, when I went to 10, it actually just put like 5 pillars on there, thicker, but there's gaps in the middle. So it's up to you however you want to change it. The speed basically is how fast do you want to print this. Again, I don't mess with these. I just leave them. I don't mess with these either. The angles on this is up to you. See how right now they're at an angle. They're at 45 and 90 degrees. But let's say if I go to 60, you notice these change. If I go to 85 here, you'll notice that changes. Just leave these the way they are. These are preset already, so you don't really want to mess with these. But I just thought you guys would want to know. Okay. Moving along. This right here is going to be the type of infill that you're going to have. Basically, do you want square ones? Do you want parallel lines? Or do you want triangles? These I like to use these. These are the most famous ones just because they got the honeycomb type of effect to it. And this way it just makes it a little bit sturdier and stronger. You can do 45-degree ones if you want. I just recommend printing stuff. If you're going to print stuff anyways, just go and try these out and see which one you like. If you want to disable it, basically no infill. So just check that off. So this is just going to be basic plain print. But if you enter it, you can set it to how strong you want it, which is the density of it, and at what speed do you want to print it. So basically, what this is, the options that it's giving you so far is this part you can actually slow it down, which is the actual file itself. But the inside that nobody's gonna see, it's basically saying, hey, do you want to make it strong and just go super fast? Because there's no point in taking your time on those because it's gonna get hidden anyways. So some people prefer to do it that way, some don't. Thickness, you can do it as how thick as you want. Now I notice with infills, if you're gonna do the density high, you might as well do the thickness high, because what's gonna end up happening is they kind of play together. So it's up to you. The thickness of the infill that's gonna be in there. And again, if you don't know what infill is, like I said, it's basically these things right here. So how thick do you want this? Do you want it at a 1, a 5? So basically it'll print 5 lines and then it'll go print 5 lines and it'll go print 5 lines. Or do you want to do just 1 line each? So you got 1 here, 1 here, 1 here, 1 here, 1 here. If you want to print 2, then you got 2 and 2. So it just depends on what your preference is and what you want to do. Just leave the angle and stuff alone, but if you want to mess with it, you can. If you want to turn it this way, if there's a print that you're very sure would take a 90-degree or a 35-degree infill, go ahead and do that. That would be completely up to you. Okay, so from here we're going to move to advanced, and basically what this is, the parameter gap, that's just the gap between the actual from here to here. So if you notice, if I go to 1, it's not very visible on here to show you guys, but let's see if I go to 5. You see right there, it's basically the gap between the lines. You can't zoom in or anything, but yeah, it won't show you on the display here, but that's basically what it is. Parameter gap is just the gap between the layers, what you want it to be at. These I don't mess with. This one I just leave alone. Source direction is exactly don't care. You're not really gonna use any of these face forwarding source. I don't use these. I'm not too that much of an expert to know how to use these yet. I don't even know what the main purpose of these are because I've never used it. What else do we need here? Speeds. Okay, this is what I was talking about. Travel speed. This is the travel speed between the two items. Let's say you have 2 things printing on your plate. It's the distance, not while it's printing the item, but when it's going from one item to the other. Okay. Wipe speed, same thing. Vertical speed, just going up. Prime speed, it's the same thing. It's not going to give you a preview, so I can't really explain that to you in detail. Support width. Basically, what this is everything that you print, there will be some kind of an overhang. So these are the little things that you break apart after your print is done, and those are called supports. So how wide do you want the supports? Soft support with um, basically, excuse me, how easy it's going to be for you to rip off, and then what's the speed on it. Now, if you're just building supports, you don't really care about the quality. Don't put it at 100, put it high, put it at 150 like it says right here, and you'll be fine. There's no problem with it because it's all going to come off anyways. Okay, now moving along to the next one, your first layer. This one's actually a very important screen for me. The next two will be um, your first layer. Basically what it is most people complain that, you know, I can't get my first layer right, and since I don't get that right, my whole print doesn't come out right. So your first layer, you want to make it thick, in my opinion. I do. um, how much filament is going to be coming out through the extruder? I leave it at 100 because I want to even flow all the way through. But here's the kicker right here, the speed. Guys, this might add maybe 5 to 10 minutes on a 50 or 20-hour print that you're doing, which isn't a lot. Slow your first layer speed down. Give it time to lay the filament out right so it sticks to your bed, there's adhesion on it, because after that, basically everything falls behind it. So the best way I can explain it to you is if you have a house and the foundation sucks, the house is going to crumble away. But if you do a good job on the foundation, that house is going to be there forever. Okay? So it's basically structurally sound. If you slow this down, uh, keep the height. I would probably go 1 on this one, because what 1's going to do is make it super small. Okay, if you do 3, there's going to be a little bit of a gap like we saw here, I believe, layer height. So this is what it's talking about. If I click this on 1, you notice how it's more closer together. So that's what you want to, that's what this height is right there. So you want it as close as possible on your first layer so it sticks together. So that's that. Skirt or brim, guys, print these out. What this is, if you notice, if this is your, let's see, it actually illustrates it for you, which is perfect. So let's say if this is your print, you don't want your print to just go from your corner straight here and start printing, because then what if your filament isn't flowing right, or what if there's an issue where there's stringing just for the first layer. That's happened to me, like just the first run that it makes, but then after that it's fine. So a skirt, if you notice, is just thin, maybe 1 or 2 layers all or parameter right around it. Okay, and then after that it jumps into your print. Brim, notice it's a little bit thicker. There's maybe about 5-6 lines on there before it gets going. So excuse me. So worst case scenario, guys, I would recommend you at least do a skirt just to get that filament going, just to get everything nice and tight before the printing starts on it. Offset, let me see if it actually shows it to you guys. It does not. But basically this is like the minimum length and the minimum count that you can do. The thickness of it, if you want whatever you pick, you can adjust that in there. So if you want this part to be thicker, you can just adjust it right there and go off of that. Now, the one I use on my important prints is called Raft. Okay, the reason I use this, if you notice, it does not have a picture of it, which is amazing. It does on these two, but not on that one. Anyways, Raft, what it does is, let's say A is what you're printing here. It's going to print a whole layer, like right around here, before it even starts on that. What that's going to do is get the first layer to stick on the bed as well as it can, and then it's going to print your file on top of that first layer. So basically you have, oh, it did bring it up. Okay, perfect. So like this, if you notice, it puts down the first layer all the way through and then puts your print on top, where here It's just on the outside of the print, and then it gets going. So your print is actually touching the bed. On raft, it is not touching the bed. So if you got important prints, guys, use this. Give it that extra 5-10 minutes. Just let it print. I mean, if you're in already 20-hour print, slow it down on the first layer. It's very important. Okay. That's basically it on that one. And then the next one we're gonna go over is just the temperature. Again, bed temperature, guys. For PLA, to be honest, you don't really need it, but 60 is the recommended that you would use if you ask somebody. Why? Because it's just better adhesion. That's all it is. You don't necessarily need a heated bed, but you could use it. It does help. Next one is your head temperature. Okay, that's basically your nozzle. One very important thing about here, I've seen a lot of people online asking, well, what temperature should I print my PLA at, or what temperature should I print my ASB or my flex material? Every spool that you buy has a rated temperature on there. So like my PLA spool, if you look under temp, it's on the outside. It'll say between 180 to 210 and not to exceed that. So when people print like at 220 with PLA, what that does is it gives you that stringing. It doesn't attach to each other that well. The layers come off wrong, and that's why your prints don't look good. So like here, if I was printing on my PLA, I would just leave it at 200 because it's between 180 and 210, which is the recommended temperature for my PLA. Okay. Now this one down here, basically, which order do you want the items to heat up? Do you want your bed to heat up first or your head to heat up first? I like to do the bed, so I leave it at the bed the way it is. If you want your head to heat up first, you can do the head first, but just do the bed first. It just makes it easier. Okay, and then of course the other important part is cooling. Enable fan. Okay, how fast do you want it to go? You can make it go up to 100. On this one, apparently you can go lower, or 100 right there. Disable fan on first. Basically what that means is your fan's gonna kick on while you're putting the initial layers down, and then you're gonna turn it off after your first 4 layers. Now that doesn't mean all the fan on your 3D printer is going to go up. If you notice, every 3D printer or most decent 3D printers have minimum of 2 fans. There's one fan that's constantly on, and like on my printer there's one on the right that only comes on when I tell it to, and that's this fan right here. So basically it helps you cool the first layer down because that is the most important part. So after the 4th layer it stops. If you want to just be safe and go to like the 8th layer or something, then you can have it stop after that. Once you do that, there's the G code, which I don't really mess with. I don't like, not a programming guy. I don't know what these are, so I just leave it the way it is. So those are the basic features: advanced, foundations, temperature. And after you've set all these guys, all you gotta do is hit slice. Okay, and once you do that, it'll bring it up here, or I don't know what these are. I think because I'm using a Mac, it's giving me all these colors at the bottom. I have no idea what that is, but basically I'm just gonna ignore that for now. Okay, so once you have your item here, what you want to do is, there's 2 things you can do. You can go back to support. Now this particular cup is not going to have too many supports, but if I wanted to, I could add one here manually, here manually, here manually, here, here, and just turn around, put some here, and put some here if I wanted to. So that's just going to make it a little bit stronger than what the program suggested. So this will just give you a quick view of it. Again, I'm just going to go into slice. I've already set all the parameters on here. I went over it with you. And once you hit slice, it'll take you to the next screen. Like I said, this one here. Again, I don't know what these are at the bottom. And once that's done, you just hit save. And once you save it, you can rename it, save it wherever you want, and that is your G code right there, guys. So the expert features are not that hard. Um, if you know the basics of any slicing software, it should help you out to further your knowledge on this one. Again, the reason I tried this particular program is because it was suggested to me by a colleague on my Facebook 3D printing group. I started off with Cura, which I thought was a pretty decent program. One of my buddies actually has the S3D, which is a simplified 3D, and that one has like 4 times the detail specs that uh, Craftware has. So it was a little intimidating for me. But this one here, Craftware is like a mixture of Cura and S3D. It puts them together and gives you the benefits of both worlds on this one. It's not too complicated to use. It's not too easy, but it does have an easy mode if you want to use it. So you can basically use whichever program you want. I'm still going to use Cura on some programs. I'm going to use Craftware on some other programs. But it's basically up to you guys what you would like to use. And I hope this video has been helpful. If you want to see other videos on anything, just leave a comment down below and I will see what I can do. If you are a beginner to 3D printing world, like I said, there's other useful videos that I have down here as well. And I make all my videos, as you know, from a beginner's point of view because I've only been doing this for about 2 months. Um, so I like to have a video out every other day, which is every 2 days. If there's anything I can help you guys out with, leave a comment. I'll try to research it and just get back to you only. Um, and that's about it, guys. And I recently created a Facebook page if you want to join. If you guys want to ask me questions on there, send me messages. Come straight to my phone, so even at work I can answer it for you. That's about it, ladies and gentlemen. I thank you for watching and happy printing. Enjoy.
If you like this video, give us a like and subscribe to our channel.